Steven, I have some great news for you.
What's good?
We're sending you down to the G League to get some more reps. Hey, Steven, I have some good news for you.
What's good?
We're calling you up from the G League to go back to the NBA level.
Sounds like a move to me.
Let's do it. It's time for revenge on the PHNX Suns pregame show. Welcome on in on this Wednesday evening. Of course, this show brought to you by Gila River Resorts and Casinos. You do you. At Gila River Resorts and Casinos, visit playatgila.com for more details. I'm Eric, that's Steven. Espo is in Denver. Gerald is at Footprint Center, but don't worry, nobody get nervous. Crazy computer guy Noah's behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen. Devin, Patrick, Tony, Optical Illusion, Lucas, Chunky, Cara, Meatloaf, Michael, Joshua, everybody in the chat, and Steven. An overwhelming thought on this game is a gotta have it. You gotta pay back the Timberwolves for Julius Randle's push-off buzzer-beating three against now Charlotte Hornets legend Josh Okogie.
Honestly, that pales in comparison to the broom that was brought to the playoff series that took place in the first round. So if we're talking about things and what matters most,
yeah,
the broom first.
That's fair.
And all of the talk that took place, obviously there's a key piece in that that's not with the Timberwolves anymore and Karl Anthony Towns, but a solid bit of that foundation is still there. And this is your first opportunity with the healthy squad to go up against that same team that put you out in the least desirable fashion. What you gonna do about it?
Yeah, you're right. The sweep, but it's a what have you done for me lately type of thing.
Man,
you know,
listen, you don't get to the low that they had.
No, I know.
I'm just, you know, you're talking to.
And you definitely know that in the back of a guy like Booker's mind,
For sure.
right?
That's
Kevin
my point.
Durant's mind,
For
Bradley
sure.
Beal's mind, even somebody like Grayson Allen who didn't really get to play in that series because of injuries. Like there is a long history with this team, and not just in the fact that they matched up in the playoffs, but even before that, right? Back when D'Angelo Russell was on the team, like Devin Booker and the Minnesota Timberwolves are just one of a few franchises that Book just kind of always has something going on with. And even though now another one of his friends in Karl Anthony Towns is no longer on the Timberwolves, you still have the two people that I believe are 2 or 3 vying for shooting guard 1 in the league. Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker. I throw Donovan Mitchell in there as well. But tonight you got 2 Titans clashing at that 2 guard position between Ant and Book. That's
going to be fun. Both of them are well aware of the discourse. A lot of times with those 2 names being at, if not near the top, in terms of those 3 names that you just got done speaking to, and both of which are gold medal recipients from this most recent Team USA stretch. There's a lot of competition and layers of chapters over the last couple of years between those 2. I think they both have ascended in their own right over the last handful of years, and this is going to be another maybe bookmark moment within the chronicles of the 2 going up against each other tonight.
Good pun. Bookmark.
No
that was
pun
good.
intended.
And also, I think a little underlying thing for Anthony Edwards is going into the Olympics, it was all talk about how Anthony Edwards should be the starting 2 guard, right? Devin Booker, of course, getting that spot.
He should be taking the most shots and leading the team in scoring,
as Anthony Edwards does, right? And also, not only that, but Devin Booker in his last 2 games against the Timberwolves. Now, this is, of course, courtesy of Booker Muse. Shout out to all the Muse accounts out there. I like what y'all doing. 46.5 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, 6.5 assists per game on 56-50, 93 splits. That is somebody who I believe not only takes the challenge of playing a team like the Timberwolves that he has a history with, but also lining up against somebody else that is in contention for best at your position and saying, hey, there's still a pecking order. I've been around. Let me show you what's up. I think whichever one of those 2, quote unquote, wins the battle tonight, their team is going to be put in a much better position because these are teams that are sandwiched right next to each other in the Western Conference standings.
They are. I think there's going to be a wrinkle in that diffuses the one-on-one, and that's Kevin Durant.
Who's playing tonight?
Who is playing tonight, who also does not have a feasible matchup that's going to be directly guarding him. And that you can say that for most teams because most teams don't have someone that can just directly match up with KD. But for Minnesota, Julius Randle, for as physical as he is, does not defend as well in space and has had his struggles over the last handful of years guarding Kevin Durant. I think that obviously naturally Devin Booker and Anthony Edwards still the plot. But what might break that up is if Kevin Durant just decides to have 40 or 45.
Which can happen.
Which can happen within 3.5 quarters or 3 quarters. Like,
yeah.
You know, so.
Well, and I think you're 100% right. I remember real ones know. This was like a little sprinkle, a little tease. Back when Karl Anthony Towns got traded from the Timberwolves to the New York Knicks, Steven and I did our first ever podcast together. It was remote. I sounded like I was under an ocean. Right. But we were breaking down what this meant for the Phoenix Suns specifically. Yeah. And we both completely agreed that this makes the Timberwolves way more beatable from at least a Suns perspective. We both felt like overall they would be worse. Some people disagreed. But we thought specifically for this team and Kevin Durant, Karl Anthony Towns creates a lot different of a mismatch for KD through size, through his three-point shooting ability. He's running off of screens like a guard. So on defense, you're taking Kevin Durant out of a lot of other interior actions that he's good at defending and blocking. Like Cat was a pretty tough guard for KD, and on the other end had the physical tools to make it as difficult for Kevin Durant as, you know, somebody can, which is not that difficult. But now it's Julius Randle, and not only is Julius a little more slow-footed, has a way different shot profile that clogs up the lane for the Timberwolves. I think on both ends for KD, this matchup is a little bit more free for him than it would have been in its previous iteration.
Yeah, for the finesse that it takes to keep up with Karl Anthony Towns, although that's not there in the same respect as it was when Cat was there, it takes on a different hit, no pun intended. Yeah. But the physicality that Julius Randle is going to play with. So Durant still has his work cut out for him, but I think it's, to your point, in a context of defense that he's more comfortable at this point in his career being able to bank on his length and not have to overexert himself in terms of defending in space and things like that. And I think on the other end, vice versa, if it is Julius Randle that is guarding KD, which it might not always be him, but it might just be the matchup from the onset. Right. He's not as good. He's not as big a defender for one as Cat is. But Cat was also very good defending in space last season to the extent that their best lineups in the playoffs were when Cat was at the 5 and they were pretty much just switching almost all actions. Julius, he's trying, but he doesn't have that level of dynamic to his defense, not yet at least.
Well, he's not as swift-footed as Cat.
He's not. But remember, there was a point where Cat wasn't.
No, and I agree, but I'm saying, like specifically recently. And that is something that you can work on, but I feel like, you know, Cat's younger than Julius. Yeah. I don't know how much. I don't think it's that much.
Probably about 2 years.
I mean, Julius Randle's only 30, but just like his body type and his type of game, it's just a little bit of a slower game. Cat felt like that was a little bit more workable with him. And I don't mean to make it out to seem like Julius Randle's a slouch, because he's not. He's averaging about 19 points per game, 7 rebounds, 4.5 assists.
One of the 10 best players in the NBA for a large majority of the season before last.
And he is also one of those players that on any given night, even when he's having a down season, he could still have like a 30 and 15 game, right? Like he's somebody that can catch fire. He is somebody whose game is kind of ebbs and flows. And as he gets a little later in his career where he's not getting as much usage, he's not the number one guy, it ebbs and flows a little bit less frequently. You have the longer peaks and a little bit longer valleys. So you could walk into tonight and still say like Julius Randle could have a win it all for his type of team performance, just like Anthony Edwards. There are a couple other elements, of course, to Minnesota that's a little bit differently. Let's start with the injury report because there are some pieces missing for them, and the Suns do get Ryan Dunn back. I mentioned it in the chat. He is available. We also brought up Kevin Durant's available. Of course, Dunn dealing with that left ankle sprain that he rolled on Devin Booker's foot. Kevin Durant with a left thumb injury is available. Does have tape over it. Ty, Jalen Bridges are both out. Nas Reed out with an illness. That's a pretty big loss for the Timberwolves, 6th man of the year. Rob Dillingham, the rookie, is available with an illness. Dante DiVincenzo.
That's the biggest.
Part of the Julius Randle trade out. Terrence Shannon is out. What is it about missing Dante DiVincenzo that is the biggest hit for Minnesota?
3-point shooting, and not just him being able to shoot threes, but the requisite attention that a defense has to give when he's spaced one pass away from Anthony Edwards versus when someone else is spaced in those spots. The way that the defense is going to react, including the Suns, is going to be completely different than if he was in those spots. It should allow for the Suns to play more comfortably in terms of showing help to shrink the floor on Anthony Edwards, especially when he's in pick and roll, but especially also when he's in isolation. It should work in their favor. We'll see how that plays out, obviously. Naturally, we saw players like Nickeil Alexander-Walker have somewhat out-of-body experiences in that first-round series where the Suns were playing the way that I'm saying, conceding help to Ant and erring on those guys knocking down shots. We'll see how that kind of plays out, but the Suns should be better defensively defending Ant because of that dynamic.
And I also think part of the reason why Dante DiVincenzo being gone hurts Minnesota more this year is because Mike Conley has not been to that same level as he was before. Now, he's not a total bum, but you've definitely seen him start to decline a little bit at the end of his career, and that was something that really helped power them last season. Now, Rob Dillingham being available, he was, of course, drafted, and him and Terrence Shannon, who's out tonight, both drafted to kind of take a little bit of that away from him, but I wouldn't say Rob Dillingham has been what they expected him to be so far. But he's a rookie, so you can't put a ton of that on him. And that's why you do look at a Nickeil Alexander-Walker and think, is he going to have a big game tonight? I think you also look down low without Naz Reid. You can say what you want about Rudy Gobert. You can not like the guy. I don't like the guy, right? I think that, what?
So you can say what you want about the guy. I don't like the guy.
Yeah. I think a lot of people share that opinion, but he is more in the range of higher caliber centers. As far as who the Phoenix Suns have faced recently. And I think now we look at Nick Richards and say, okay, we saw what happened against Zubats. Mason Plumlee finished that game. We saw what happened against Jarrett Allen. Nick Richards did not have a great game. You've had some time to fit in with the system. Your chemistry should be a little bit better. What do you do against a center like Rudy Gobert? How do you see that matchup playing out tonight?
Yeah. Well, in contrast to the two matchups that you just spoke to with Zoo and with Jarrett Allen, there's a flaw with Rudy Gobert, and it's when you can be physical with him. Obviously, and I say this with great emphasis, word to Monty Williams, it has to be to the legal limit. You cannot afford to put yourself in foul trouble, because if you're playing Mason Plumlee 25 to 30 minutes like you did against the Clippers, it might not work in your favor just because of the vertical spacing dynamic that Rudy provides for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So to answer Tony's question from the chat earlier, does Nick bring the big Nick energy tonight? I think he does, and I think the impact will be there because of the physicality and how it weighs and it irritates Rudy Gobert to extents that we've seen him not necessarily get phased out of games, but be dictated to in a way that you might not assume from the onset.
And no Cat to kind of counteract with that. And now no Naz Reid means that center rotation is pretty thin for them. Might see some small ball Julius Randle 5. That's a matchup that physically Nick Richards can dominate. I am just with Buddha the Schizo in the chat who says, cannot wait for this game to start. There's so much on the line. The Phoenix Suns are riding a 3-game win streak. Going to tonight, you could win 4, taking down 2 opponents directly ahead of you in the Western Conference standing. I'm super excited about this game. I know everybody in the chat is. I know Steven is. Over 200 of you in here right now. We don't have a like goal, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do what Joshua says, which is hit that like button. Tony, Fran, Chunky, Sean, T, Meatloaf, Buddha, JDQ, Juju, everybody who's in here, thank you so much for joining us on a Wednesday evening. About 10-ish minutes left of our pregame show. We'll all go watch the show in our separate ways, and you're all going to come back here. We're all going to hang out and talk a little hoop in our postgame show. Let's continue to talk about some of the more specifics for tonight. Let's talk about our win predictions. We broke out how this matchup could play out. Let's see what we're predicting, starting with Gerald, who is taking the Timberwolves to win by 3. Then we have Espo, who's taking Suns by 1. I'm going Suns by 2. Steven, the most confident, Suns by 6.
Yeah, for one, I didn't know about the injuries as far as Naz Reid. I think he was questionable this morning. Obviously, now he's not playing. That makes me even more comfortable about the Suns by 6 pick. I feel like the way that the space that the Suns offense is operating in, especially Devin Booker, makes them a top 5 offense in the league. And that meets iron with iron. A lot of the cards that Minnesota pushes to the table are on the defensive end. So whose side of the ball that they put their strength on is going to play better in this one, I think is going to be the Suns. And I think it's because they can poke at certain things within this Minnesota Timberwolves defense that other teams can't.
Noah, let's put a poll in the chat. Do you think the Suns win tonight? Now, Steven, obviously, I think, like we mentioned, missing those centers, like Minnesota is a little shorthanded. They are very well coached, though. And we have seen with lots of teams, they kind of step up in the moment. So when we check out the line, especially this being a home game, I don't know, have you seen the line specifically for this yet? I want you to guess.
I haven't checked. I don't think I've seen any of the bet odds and whatnot since this morning.
What do you think the line is over at Bet365 for this game? At Footprint Center, Minnesota is technically higher in the standings, 25 and 21.
Minnesota minus 500?
Minus 500?
Yeah.
That would be pretty insane.
Or not 500. I'm tripping. Minnesota minus 250.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense. Let's see if you're right with our friends over at Bet365. Wow. They basically have this one as a pick-em. Yeah, maybe that's the home court part of it. Maybe it's the fact the Suns have won 3 in a row. I was definitely thinking you'd be close. But both money lines at a minus 110, and then spread for the Suns, they're getting a point. Minnesota is -1 on the spread. Very interesting. Basically a pick 'em. So let's see what we picked, because it is time for our pregame picks, of course, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHNX365 when you sign up and find out why, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary over at Bet365. You must be 21 plus and located in AZ. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Steven, maybe you didn't get the line right in your prediction, but did you get a big winner tonight with your bet?
I think I did. And I'm going keeping it simple again. Plus 1,400 odds, I'll start with that.
It's good odds.
Got Devin Booker, 36.5 points, rebounds, and assists. He's been in a great space with his feel and what he's playing with offensively for this team. I think Anthony Edwards, one of the best. He's leading the league in three-point shooting, three-pointers made in this season so far. He's taking almost double digits a game.
Yeah.
And he's knocking down a solid clip of those. I think he gets to that 4 that I need for my bet to go green. And then the other big thing for me, Tyus Jones.
That's where your odds are coming from.
Last 2 games, he's been in double figures in scoring and double figures in terms of his field goal attempts. They need him to be aggressive in this one for them to win. Off the catch, but also when he's initiating the offense, especially in pick and roll. Get downhill, get in the paint, either get to the free throw line or get up some field goal attempts of your own to put some points on the board.
Anthony Edwards is the Minnesota Timberwolves all-time leader in three-pointers made. You would have thought it would have been Karl Anthony Towns.
He just started shooting a high volume of threes this
year.
Season.
Yeah. And Karl Anthony Towns played 9
I think
seasons.
D'Angelo Russell was 3rd or 2nd. He's mixed in there. Yeah,
Cat has to be 2nd.
Cat was number 1. Yeah,
was 1 now 2nd.
Yeah. I think it's those 3 though. D'Angelo Russell was 3rd, if I'm not mistaken.
This is Wally Zerbiak erasure.
You're telling me Ricky Rubio didn't hold that record?
No, that's my boy. Don't you dare hate on Ricky Rubio. One thing you need to learn about this Pistons boy, okay, is that we do not disrespect any member of that Suns 2019-2020 team. Okay. You don't disrespect Ricky Rubio.
That was not disrespect.
Did you ever look into his eyes? You didn't. They were magical. Okay.
All right.
Interviewed that man at Media Day.
Chill, bro.
Magical. Now that I got that out of my system, let's take a look at Espo's bet. Wow. What is he putting his money on tonight? Straight up Suns money line. And I'm going to let you know, usually this is what happens when somebody doesn't get their bet in. Espo said this was his bet. Now, was that of laziness? Maybe. Was it because he loves minus bets lately? Maybe. But he's still rolling with Suns money line. He needs a win, any type of win. And let's take a look at my bet. Of course, the greatest bet that there ever possibly could be. Plus 845. I got Devin Booker at 35.5 over on PRA, same that you have. I have Ryan Dunn, who is in tonight, at over 1.5 stocks. I have Book at over 2.5 three-pointers made. He's been launching as of late. And I have Tyus at over 4.5 assists. All of that coming out to a plus 845. Woo.
Okay. I am on the fence with Tyus in the assists.
Yeah.
Because the ball is inevitably going to be in Devin Booker and Kevin Durant's hands as the main triggers for the team, I'm curious about where his assists will come from. If the ball movement is where it's supposed to be and they're flirting with 30 assists, he's going to have opportunities in the middle of the hockey assist stemming from one of those 2
Yeah,
to
but
get the actual
I'm
assist.
betting on him also having opportunities at the end. And also, I think because now, especially without Naz Reid, I thought Nick Richards was going to be better tonight.
Yeah.
And I think one of the easiest assists for Tyus Jones is Nick Richards. I think if they go to Julius Randle, small ball 5, Tyus might get 2 assists in a row, just doing a 2-man game with Nick. So I think that, plus I think Book's going to shoot a lot tonight. I think he'll make a lot too. That's just how great he is, and that's what he always does. But I think Book's going to be looking to shoot it tonight, as again he's been averaging almost 50 points per game against the Timberwolves in their last 2 matchups.
No,
literally. So that's kind of both that I'm looking at there. Is Tyus going to be in the middle of that hockey assist, be in the middle of that ball movement, couple easy ones to Nick, couple easy ones to Book. I think 5 is decent. Jordan asks, is Ryan Dunn playing tonight? Yes, Ryan Dunn is in. Kevin Durant is in. Is there any final thoughts overall about this Timberwolves team that Suns fans should be looking for? Let's start maybe on the offensive end, what they should expect going into tonight.
Their offense has been better than people have been giving them credit for. I think people kind of wrote them off when they traded spacing for another player that operates in the mid-range that doesn't space it, that gets the same level of respect that Cat did. Randall's been handling his business. He's flirting with another 20-point per game average on a season basis. Decent efficiency, and he's navigating himself to the free throw line often enough for this team for it to work out. And on the other side of the floor, if we're looking at it, well, we could keep it on the Timberwolves offense. The Suns have to push them into the pockets of the court that they want them to shoot from. And they have to run guys off the three-point line and just be solid within their defensive shell. Do it in a way that they showed in pockets against the Clippers. And then on the other side of the floor, with the Timberwolves defensively, a top 5 team defensively in the league so far, the Suns are going to have the work cut out for them. They like to switch. They can still switch effectively. I'm curious about what that's going to do to players like Tyus Jones. We talked about him being aggressive. I don't know if those assist pockets will be there like he is accustomed to, because they're comfortable switching. The teams generally have been comfortable switching against him, forcing him to be aggressive. So if he comes out with that type of aggression that they need from him, I think this could be a big opportunity for him, and it's going to be in a way that this team needs him to for them to get the win.
Yeah, and for Phoenix to be able to survive this defense from Minnesota, which not only is it good on the rating side of it, but when you watch it, their communication, their switching, like defensive just philosophy. Like when we talked about how the Suns were struggling earlier this year, and comparatively looking at a team like the Orlando Magic, who was winning games without their best players, and now you're facing a Timberwolves team that's down a couple of their better players, right? How do you overcome that is your communication, your effort on defense, and that's something that Chris Finch's team has always done since he's taken over. That's been their identity. And you mentioned Anthony Edwards bombs away from 3. The Timberwolves bomb away from 3. As far as field goals attempted and field goals made in the league, they're 26th in both category. As far as three-pointers attempted, three-pointers made, they're top 5. So if you do the math there, they're not taking a ton of shots. They're slowing down the game. They're grinding it out with their defense. And then when they are shooting, they're not doing it from inside the line very often, right? You're going to be shooting lots of threes. You'll get some Julius Randle, some Anthony Edwards mid-range shots in there as well. But a majority of their shots, at least more so than other teams, is going to come from deep. I'm excited for this game. There is a lot riding on this game because the Suns are down 0-1 in the season series. Of course, they still have 3 more games, including tonight, against them. But a loss tonight would mean the best that you can do against this team is tie them. And right now, you are sandwiched right next to each other in the Western Conference standings.
And it might just be like that, whether they both ascend or they stay in this same realm through the finish line of the season. So you have to go get this one. It's a gotta have it.
Minnesota 25-21, Phoenix 24-21. Half a game separating the two. 91 votes in the chat, over 250 of you in here right now. Smash that like button. Get that good energy going. 86% say, yeah, dog. The Suns can take down the Timberwolves. 14% say that's a no. The beautiful part about it all, Steven, is now we get to go watch the game. We get to break it down. And if you're subscribed, if you hit that like button and you turned our notifications on, you're going to know exactly when we go live for our post-game show. If you're new around here, a couple minutes after the final buzzer, Steven and I are going to be breaking down the show live from this studio right here on PHNX Sports. Gerald Bourguet, our beat reporter, will be calling in live from Footprint. We'll be taking your super chats, taking your comments, and we'll be breaking down what could be the 4th win in the row for the Suns, or them dropping to 0-2 against the Timberwolves in the season series. Drop a like, tune back in afterwards, and we're going to break it all down. We'll see you then.
We all silly like the mayor.